Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome back. Tonight, I will have a special guest in the form of Terry Joyce from Not My Rabbit Hole, who will have to forgive me because I'm a terrible show host and forgot to put her YouTube channel in the description of this video, but I'm going to do that while we have our conversation here. For a long time now, people have been asking me to cover Max Spiers, well-known conspiracy land character, and his deaths and the conspiracies surrounding his deaths. I looked into it a little bit, but I'm not an expert on him or his history, how he rose to prominence, what occurred when he apparently died of a drug overdose, and more. But Terry Joyce from Not My Rabbit Hole has been covering this subject probably since the beginning. And has interviewed Miles Johnson and others related to the Max Spiers sort of saga, and has extensively also covered Sarah R. Adams, who you may recall we've covered here, the fake healer, fake psychic, fake. So I wanted to bring her here because she's much more well-versed on the history and the, more. Now,
yes, I do remember that interview, and it was pretty like she was just really all over the place. And I don't know if that interview is still up, because I think at the time with CW Chanter, they kind of deemed her as mentally unstable. Yeah,
knowledgeable about everything. I would like to also just make a note to anybody trying to send me Twitter messages. I have been suspended from Twitter for tweeting, quote, here's what I tweeted. It's a dick. It's a joke, not a dick. Don't take it so hard. It's a joke, not a dick. Don't take it so hard. I was suspended from Twitter for tweeting that. Now, despite anything that I think about Twitter, right now, there are people from Hamas. There are people from the Islamic Brotherhood. There is Louis Farrakhan is allowed on Twitter, spewing all kinds of hate and racism. And there are literally terrorists are allowed on Twitter. But I'm banned from Twitter for apparently tweeting, quote, it's a joke, not a dick. Don't take it so hard. I don't even know what to say about this, but it is what it is. Unfortunately, we're unable to stream to Twitter until this situation is resolved. I filed an appeal. Nobody got back to me. I don't even know what to say about that. It's ridiculous that literal terrorists and Nazis and other people are allowed on Twitter today, but I'm not, because I tweeted, it's a joke, not a dick. Don't take it so hard. And by the way, that was in reaction to some feminazi who took issue with our.
Okay, I'm gonna speed it up just a little bit here.
For having me on to talk about Max tonight. I want to make you mentioned that he died of an overdose, and that is not exactly correct. The autopsy report says that he also had, right. Okay, yeah. The autopsy report said there were drugs in his body. There was the Turkish form of Xanax. There was traces of heroin that was apparent. And he also had pneumonia. And any one of these things could have taken his life, but really it's overall inclusive. And that's kind of like what forensic, anthropologists, basically, forensic analysis is. It's not really sometimes a total determination of what somebody's death is. It's more like, well, these causes may have caused him to die, but in a sense, like if it were a murder case or something like that, you'd have to go into court and have it like proven pretty much.
Okay, well,
not that that really makes it any different, but he was ill at the time of his death.
Okay, well, I would like to start at the beginning because, honestly, I'm much more familiar with Sarah R. Adams and her superhero origin stories. You know, first she said she was a super soldier and the black goo gave her superpowers. Then it was she was an alien hybrid and that's why she has superpowers. She retconned her superhero origin story several times. For those not very familiar with Max Spiers, can we talk about some of his claims, what he first came out with, what he was saying, what he was because he gave lectures on all of this stuff. And you know, I try to watch some of it. I'm like confused, really. Can you give us some insight into how he got started, how he got so popular, and what he was saying?
Oh, yeah. Well, okay. There was a Carrie Cassidy had started this super soldier program type of thing with, like, say, for example, Duncan O'Finian. If you go before Max and James and everybody else that came down the line, there was Duncan O'Finian and I guess a guy named Jeff Corsi. I think Jeff Corsi was his name. And I was on Revolution Radio at the time, a host, and there was also an Aaron Hicks that Carrie had interviewed. She came out and said that she was a Rothschild. She was the first person of that ilk that I had actually seen. And I think, and then they did these super soldier forums, which was in Henderson. The one that was where there was James and Sarah and Max at was in Henderson, Nevada. There was also Stephen D. Kelly was there. There were several people that were involved in this particular media that were part of that particular event. And that is where Carrie Cassidy did the initial interviews of James Casbolt and Max Spiers together. From there, this whole super soldier thing became coined. Now, the super soldier program is based on, I believe, the theory that the Nazis made contact with extraterrestrials, and it has like an Uberman thing, like the perfect soldier, augmented reality. I mean, augmented asset. Not augmented reality, but, you know, chips and you know, DNA tampering and MK Ultra mind control. And it kind of hybrided all those theories together. Now, the thing with Max is that he never called himself a super soldier. I'm not really sure how he got into this whole, you know, type of media. But I do know that his father was a famous actor. Not father, his grandfather was a famous actor, and his name was Herbert Percy. He was in the movie The Bridge Over River Kwai. He, you know, went to, I guess, you know, like schools paid, like, you know, like private schools. He was not in the normal school system. He was a childhood friend of Orlando Bloom's, the actor. There's a connection there. I think that maybe Orlando Bloom was like his godfather, or Kristen does as his godfather, even though they were the same age. So there's this association to that actor. And you know, he would admit that I'm not, you know, what you call a super soldier. However, he did talk about being in some kind of programs. He admitted to kind of like waking up and getting repressed memories. Even if you wanted, I mean, I'm not here to argue whether these things are valid.
I'm gonna let this play out a little bit, because, you know, this is obviously something that David Schroeder isn't really happy about, and I would say probably Sarah as well. So, you know, I think it's necessary. This is like a little bit of an extra component in everything that's going on, because David Schroeder has taken a lot of time now trying to smear me and make it look like I was doing something nefarious about Max, and therefore, you know, I should be even doubly punished, is how he tells his audience. And it gives him more reason to say the things that he does about me. And this is Stephen Cambion, so he's saying that, you know, Sarah's in his chat trying to, I think it's Sarah, trying to tell him that he and I are grifters and we're in on it together, when clearly you see that both of us are dissecting a lot of the conspiracies that have happened in this particular media. And it also bleeds over into like the 17th letter of the alphabet conspiracy. And I'm going to touch on that at the end of this video. I'm going to wrap it all around in my point. It's a long way to go to the point, but I think as people who may not know like what's really going on and what David's really talking about, I think it's really important to show the research and the work that I've done pertaining to Max Spiers. And it's not just research, like, you know, like for example, Angel Power Disney's out there saying that I didn't know him and all this kind of stuff, and she knew him. Actually, it's the other way around. She never really interviewed Max Spiers, but I interviewed Max Spiers. So I don't understand why all these people are even bringing up Max right now. I guess because it's part of this whole thing, this whole junket of what David Schroeder is spewing on his channel.
It or not. However, it is known that MK Ultra mind control really does exist or did exist. At what point did it stop being practiced? We don't know. And there is a connection to claims that a lot of people that are in Hollywood are also victims of MK Ultra mind control. Specifically, even the comedian Roseanne has come out and admitted that she was, and that when she talks about it publicly, a lot of people in Hollywood come up to her and go, "Thank you so much for coming and talking about this." So that's kind of like where the background.
But speaking of Angel Power Disney, she has done more damage to actual survivors. She turns on everybody. She sets them up to be, you know, legally or imprisoned or whatever. Like, she's done some really awful things to people surrounding this particular community. I would not trust her ever, ever.
It's like, he did speak on forums. He did go to these events because these events existed for them to be on. And I think that people like Kerry Cassidy and Miles Johnston and everybody else, they made a lot of money off of the super soldier conspiracy.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And isn't it interesting that so much of the what I think is garbage information, it all starts with Kerry Cassidy. You know, it's like she's at the she was the genesis of so much garbage information that is now sort of accepted as conspiracy land mythology. Whether you believe the stories are true or not, they're out there now, thanks to her making money, exploiting what a lot of people think are mentally ill people or people that are having delusions or whatever. Right?
Yep, like David, right?
So he starts with Miles Johnson and the Basis Project as well. They had an ongoing affiliation. Can we talk about Miles' role in publicizing this Max and popularizing him and his stories?
Well, I think that overall, you know, Miles Johnston was the one who really popularized them, and you know, he had James Casbolt and Max Spiers as his prize stars. Really, you know, Max was charismatic. He was a good speaker. He was good looking. So was James Casbolt. You know, like they were. You know, I mean, I've often wondered, were they just all just a bunch of actors coming up and saying what they were doing? Like, this is all pretend? Were they really saying something? The one thing that I find interesting about these two men, Max and James, is that James is nowhere to be found at the moment. You know, he went to prison, but I thought he was released.
I think he has maybe resurfaced because there was a woman named Carmen Joy that was seeing him, I guess, during the, like, right before he was imprisoned. And she has showed pictures of that he sent her of him on Facebook. So just want to throw that out there since this broadcast.
We don't know where he went to. And James Casbolt was married to Haley Meyer, who was part of the Meyer grocery store family. So he's like, the heiress to the, the inside elite, basically, the 1% he was married into. And Max, had this kind of Hollywood pedigree family that he came from, so yeah, they were both a Miles Johnston vehicle, and a lot of the shows that they were on Miles Johnston's show. Now, when you go to where the problem that I have with everything, like I could say, oh, okay, yeah, he was just a drug addict, and he OD'd, and he was touched in the head, and blah 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 blah.
Honestly, that's what I thought.
The fact of the matter is right. Okay, so and that might be true. I mean, I can't prove that that he wasn't that way. I did interview him before. I did have contact with him up until the time that he had died, and he's well spoken. He's well researched in whatever he talks about, but the problem that I have with the circumstances around his death, number one, is the fact that his computer was wiped, all of the information was missing, and the fact that his cell phone was wiped. And one of the excuses about the cell phone is that Sarah Rachel Adams was sexting with him in the bathtub, and it accidentally dropped into the water. And then that was the first initial reason why they said, well, we don't have this information. Then Vanessa asked for the SIM card to be mailed to her, and when she got it, it was scratched, and it was sent to her in the crease of a book that was about human sacrifice. And I have crazy. Verified this. I'm not that's just crazy. Saying I've talked right. That's a bit weird, right? So
well, especially to do that to somebody's. I'm sorry, for those unaware, me and Terry seem to have this. Pardon us if we talk over each other because we have some kind of a delay going on here.
We do. So it's weird to
say like over. Sorry, your turn. Okay, so it's kind of a sickening thing to do that to a grieving mother, to send her son's SIM card from his phone inside a book on human sacrifice. Like, who would do something like that to a grieving mother? That's gross. Absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, it's disgusting. And I think that a lot of people have had a lack of sensitivity for Vanessa. And to be honest with you, I care about that. I care about the fact that I just feel like she's been kind of used in many ways, and and also
David Schurter,
Sarah, and I'm going to say also Taj has taken opportunity to push out some horrible, horrific rumors concerning Vanessa and Max that I'm not even going to repeat on air. But I will say
that's right, Sarah Rachel Adams. You have, and that was that thing that I'm talking about right now was the big break off with me and Sarah. Also, the fact that someone that was working on the documentary about Captain Mark Richards that I met was telling me that she was doing Sarah's big readings. Like Sarah's paying her like $50 to read these, I don't know, basketball wives or something. And she was apparently she was making like $2 grand from it, but like, and it sounded like she was making like $2 grand and she's paying out the person who was really doing the readings $50. So yeah, and so that was another big split because Sarah and I used to be friendly in the beginning.
This I just think it's pretty damn hideous. And they're still saying it. But beyond this, like the point that I'd like your audience to know or whomever's listening right now, is when it comes to the cell phone dropping, and this is just one of the problems I have with the narrative, is that at the time of Max Spiers' death, and I've confirmed this with Vanessa Bates, Max was really not in a relationship with Sarah at all. As a matter of fact, they had broken up. And also, if you watch the interview of Carrie Cassidy and Miles Johnston, the first one that they did post Max Spiers' death, there's a woman named Sandra DeRoy who calls in, who also is part of this community. She is a filmmaker for targeted individuals. That's how she came on the scene, because Miles Johnston did a film contest. Okay. And she was communicating with Max before his death and was even going to go to Poland to visit him to be in her film. And according to her, she says Miles told her not to go because they were going to do Max in. And that Miles said something like, you know, don't you break your pretty little face. So she came out about a year ago and started talking about this. But despite all that stuff, the main thing that gets me is that even on that show, Sandra said that she spoke to Max maybe 10 days before he died. And he said that he still wasn't with Sarah, that he was not on drugs, that he was like still detoxing, and was keeping toxic people out of his life. And so I find it really interesting that post Max's death, there was this sensationalism that happened in the BBC about how mysterious he died. You know, there was a documentary that was done. All these stories came out in the paper, which had Sarah in them. And Sarah even made claims in the paper that he was being harassed by Satanists. So this media took whatever opportunity it wanted to spin whatever stories they wanted. And then those stories they contradict themselves later on. My problem right away, early on, when Max died.
Sound familiar? Yeah, David Schroeder's doing it still. It's still happening, okay?
I did a video and edited it down eventually. It was a show that I did on American Freedom Radio, and I was just kind of talking off the top of my head. I caught footage of Miles Johnston saying, you know, on the initial show, oh, he wasn't doing any drugs. Oh, there was this thing about, you know, Stuart Swerdlow, his wife, giving medication, and Sarah was a.
And I have the actual the original broadcast on this video on this channel if anybody wants to watch that.
Said and blah 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 blah, and all this stuff was like coming out in the media that way. And then like 3 weeks later, Miles is in front of a camera saying, and I have footage of it. I have it edited into a video to show the dichotomy of what he said, and then a Facebook post saying, oh, you know, once the autopsy's together, we're going to know that it's drug overdose, plain and simple. Like within 3 weeks, he was already pitching another narrative to people than the initial interview with Carrie Cassidy. That bothers me in media, because like this is not the only media I've been involved in. And so one of the reasons why I wanted to be involved in online media, or that I really kind of started to become my own journalist and talking about things, because I could see that how the mainstream media worked anyways. You know, you know, it's the control of the narrative before the autopsy come in, and that bothered me. And then Miles Johnston in that Carrie Cassidy interview does not get his last dates correctly of what show he was on and where he was at the time.
Miles doesn't get his last shows correctly, and David can't figure out his last name. Oh, wow. That's so professional.
And I was listening to Christine Joanna Hart's show, and in my video, I pointed out that he didn't get it right when he was in Cyprus. And after I did that, and I don't mean to cause drama, but after I did that, I got harassed. I basically, Christine went after me And then I had all these sock puppet accounts. Like one day I woke up and all of my social media was just like going nuts. I literally had somebody approach me as the Communist Party, and, you know, telling me that I was a horrible person. And I was like, wow, that's like getting a compliment from Satan. You know, it's like, I couldn't believe it. You know, it was really weird. And I got to say, it's not because of that incident, but my life has not really been the same since. Since that initial pointing that out, I have been.
And that's the truth, because like here I am today. That would this right here was the beginning. And it's like, right, what I'm saying there, when I started to get like the sock puppet accounts and the attacking on my social media and stuff like that, that was the first time that happened to me. And it's happened off and on, and it's cranked up right now. And Titus, the ghost pirates that we actually see who they are, who think that they run the internet, is now the new group with this. And isn't it interesting that David Schroeder is saying Thomas Schoenberger lies about me continuously, because it's all made up by Thomas Schoenberger. None of those ideas came from David originally. He's just regurgitated everything. And I can prove that. I think we all know that. So now you have David Schroeder throwing in the Max Spiers thing, and I'm pretty sure, you know, riffing off of Sarah Rachel Adams in a sock puppet account on his thread. So none of this is all still brewing in some form of another today.
And I know it's not the only thing that's causing it, but I have had just awful.
I've seen some of that, and I also think that we should at least mention that when this Max Spiers died, Conspiracy Land went nuts with all these conspiracies, and people were making monetized videos, basically telling all kinds of fairy tales about what really happened to Max Spiers, and you can still see some of that on the internet, and that is sort of
and you can see it. And I'm going to give a shout out to Team Rose, because I know, like, when Anon and some of you guys are trying to tag Team Rose and all of this, you know, she has been spinning. Team Rose, like the moment she was like, you know, talking to people, channeling Max and posting and doing things and dancing around. She was featured in that documentary that the BBC did about all the nutters talking about Max. And she's still going at it. She's still spreading weird shit on her channel.
Despicable.
Oh, and talk about somebody who got involved in the predator catcher community and causing drama. There's another one for you. Enjoy researching her.
To me, you know, regardless of what I think about his so-called information, he was a human being. He died tragically young. He has family. He has a mother. You know, leave him alone. Don't use his death to make monetized videos telling people that, you know, the men in black came and murdered him in his sleep and, you know, what did this and did that. And there was all of this stuff going around about what really happened, as if these people were some sort of authority on him, his life, his death, and what, quote, really happened to him, right?
Yeah, there is a lot. I mean, there are some things that you can sift through, you know, the conspiracies and try to piece the facts as much as possible. Like my question is like, well, how is it that, I mean, again, like, if they're right, because look, Taj and Sandra DeRoy went on Sean Atwood's show last year and sat there together, and Taj still confirmed the dropping in the cell phone story. And I'm like, okay, if that, how does that happen? If Sandra DeRoy was on Carrie Cassidy and Miles together talking about Max for the first time, calling in on that phone and saying that Max said he was in a relationship with her, and then later on, years later, Sandra comes up with another theory about things, and they end up going on Sean Atwood's show because they're going to tell all the people that he probably got killed for, the list of people in Hollywood that's like involved. They want to name drop, you know, who the child predators are.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, I like how they're always picking on Tom Hanks.
Right. So how? Right. So how do they know that you know? I kept asking that question over and over again, like. How could the cell phone drop because of Sarah if they weren't in a relationship? Like, who made that story up? And then who benefited from making that story up? Like, it really benefited Sarah to go to the press and make it look like she was still his current fiance. She was his fiance at one time, but she wasn't at the time of the death. And when I see people in this media making up stories about somebody's death that in some way is under investigation or was at one time, then you're lying. And why are you lying? Why are you saying something that is not? And I gotta say, ever since I've said that, I mean, Sarah has come after me so hard this last year with picture. Like, I've had people on Instagram, like I know she was part of it. They drew penises on towards my face with sploosh coming on it, and talking to me about personal things.
No,
I know someone like her would know. You know. Oh no.
And those are the Carissa Renteria pictures. All right, which I'm going to end up showing to you guys. So hang in there. I've got the photos.
Yes,
that is terrible, Terry Joyce.
You know, I mean, she finds me on every platform she could possibly find me on, and then it just and then like threats like, oh well, there, you know, the one where she said that I, you know, threatened to rape her, came into my chat, said I threatened to rape her, and that one of her superpowers was that she was blunt. I'm like, you know what, Sarah, that's not a superpower, first of all.
Well, she does have a lot of superpowers.
So why is she doing this to me, though?
And for those unaware of Sarah,
what problem does she have with me?
Yeah, and for those unaware, Sarah is a fake. Well, first she was a fake super soldier. Then she decided she was a fake alien hybrid. Then she decided she was just a totally 100% alien, no longer a hybrid. Then she decided, no, I'm none of those things anymore. I'm a psychic intuitive healer. And she does things like sell people $250 medbed sessions where you go through a Stargate up to the spaceship and get your medbed session and meet the extraterrestrials. But of course, it's just
absolutely evil to do that. Fake healings. Shame on Sarah.
It's a Skype call. So, you know, her attacking anybody else's credibility is ridiculous. If you ask, you know, I just sit back and watch. And for those unaware also, Sarah R. Adams has threatened to sue me 10 times now publicly for saying that her superpowers aren't real and that she scams people selling garbage to them. Yeah, and we hear this often. I've heard this story often.
Yeah.
Maybe you could comment on this. He vomited black goo before he died. I've heard that.
It wasn't. It was black liquid. I don't know if you would call it like black goo, but apparently he was vomiting some sort of liquid that was black, and he had done that. You know, the interview, the last interview. I don't know if you've ever listened to it. It's very difficult to listen to. He's not okay. He's slurring his words.
He's inebriated.
It sounds like he needs medical attention. Right. And they don't give him any medical attention. And that's not the first time that Max has been interviewed under the influence of something. Miles Johnston took it upon himself to like interview Max under the influence and then kept the tape for many years. Like he came to me even back in like 2018 and talked about it and said, you know, like as if he might show it to me, like as if like I'm showing it to certain researchers because it has, you know, this particular information. And the one thing that got me just recently is I've seen that footage now. I've gotten a copy of that tape, that interview, and I've seen it. And I know that his most recent upload about Brighton, Brighton.com, about the Max and Sarah interviews, he published the first half with Max because they happened on the same day, and then he's edited part of the drunken interview without explaining anything about it and just stuck it in there. You know, like not explaining to people why he was in the state that he was. If you watch the actual footage, which by the way, the first part is on my Spotify because I published it. I published it because I wanted to show like what the whole interview was and how Miles, first of all, Miles comes out on the video and says he claims Max was assassinated now. They always change their stories. None of them are consistent, like I said.
Yeah, it gets more and more fantastic. It gets more and more fantastic. Yeah.
Right. Just, you know, whatever they want. Right. So he says Max was assassinated and that earlier that day he got triggered in the morning. There were agents swarming them everywhere, blah, 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 at the pub or wherever they were at. And that Max was inebriated and explains, you know, he says, but there's really important information. Let's all be adults and look at this information. And then he sends that to Vanessa and says, I think it's time to publish this now. Really doesn't even give her the option to like say, no, I don't think it should be published. And then ends up like taking a part of it and taking a slice out of it and then just going, yeah, here it is. And I abhor that in media. It's something that bothers me so much because they do it all the time. They take somebody out of context and somebody says something, they go, oh, look, he is racist or he is this. Look at him say this. But if you show the beginning and the end, what they said would make different sense.
What does that sound like? Who does that? Who does that? Oh, that would be Denise. That would be, you know, Tom Schoenberger. That would be David. You know, that would be, you know, Titus Frost. That would be the Ghost Pirates. They all do it. They make shit up. They take a little tiny something and they stretch it into something that it's not. That's what they do. Why? Because Thomas was hired by Ed Butowski and DeFango was hired by him to create targeted chaos on the internet. And these people are still doing it. And if you are associated with Thomas Schoenberger, you're talking shit about people and stuff like that, you're probably more than likely part of that, whether you realize it or not. Whether David Schroeder's conscious of whether or not he's being manipulated by Thomas Schoenberger, he is. All right. He like all those emails that he's showing you that happened. Oh, he's dead. He's not dead. Blah, 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 blah. I'm getting back to Schroeder because I'm bringing a full circle about how people lie. Right. You know, and then, oh, oops. Oh, there's evidence that he's actually alive posted by me. You're looking at it with the red hat. And then 3 hours later, Thomas has to break down and email, you know, David, because now David can't use the Thomas conspiracy is dead, whatever, right? LARP. So he can, you know, make it look like he's not associated with him is what I think. Because all those other emails, Andy Villa, whatever, Dr. Arthur Reed, blah, 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 blah. You know, oh, and then when Thomas was gone, guess what David was posting? Chris McGimsey Jones and Marsha Stockton. And, you know, like the same people were feeding him the same crap about me to him. And then he can come up and smack it around. So it's the same group. Like, we're not that stupid, really. Everybody, he can say, well, Daniel Dowd and so-and-so, where they're all involved with Thomas Schoenberg, but everybody knows where the dividing line is and where the dividing line has been in a long time. They're COINTELPRO, and everything I say with my, while I'm wearing, you know, what I'm seeing on my channel is absolutely true. And because my sheriff is not stupid enough to realize that the Zillow photo or Google Earth photo of my house wasn't a real actual photo of somebody taking it in front of me, stalking me and trying, you know, no, none of it. It's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. And what does he do at every time? I mean, like, granted, I ask for donations and stuff like that too, once in a while. I'm a content provider. You know, whether you want to, you know, she's a grifter. You know what? I'm actually like I'm investigating things. I'm trying to find the truth about stuff. I'm on Truthseekers. I'm a stand-up comic. I go to college. I have a real job. All right. One that I got abused at by having Denise call. Evan, I have screenshots already of Thomas Schoenberger saying that he wants to ruin me on the internet so that I can't even get a job. Same thing came out of Denise's mouth. I'm going to make it so she never works. Really? What about comedy? Because I'm working on that. I'm working again in that world too. So these, and that's malicious intent. Like, to me, if I was going to sue somebody for this, of course, you can't sue Denise, you can't sue whatever, but you can sue Mr. Ghost Pirate, Mr. Titties, right? He's got a little money. He's hanging out there. He's worth it, maybe. But you got these two people saying verbally, I want to ruin her life. Blatantly saying it. Out there, hanging in the wind, in the internet. You can like delete your ex post, Thomas, or you can take down what you want, but just like what happened to Joe Biden today, it ain't going away. You've done what you've done. You've said what you said. And if I can participate in getting you to stop, that you stop harming people, you stop this, that you're off my back forever and shut you down, and maybe you're going to get criminally reported, I would be more than happy to see that happen, including you, Dean Fogarty. Hear me? To you. It's a trick.
People take everything out of context.
And so,
they take things out of context.
So
I just
that's
got called,
my argument.
Yeah, I just got called a misogynist for hiring a stripper to read the UFO news, and they really thought that I hired a real stripper. They were so offended. It was a goof. It was a goof. You know, it was Intel lady dressed up like a stripper. It wasn't, you know. But anyway, yeah, people take things out of context. But what was so troubling to me to see when this guy died, like I said, is just, you know, he was a human being. So let him rest in peace, regardless of what you believed or didn't believe. But we see this time and time again, like when Mark McCandlish died, people had all kinds of conspiracy theories that the men in black came and murdered him because he was getting too close to the truth about aliens and telling people the truth. It's nonsense. It's just, you know, anything to keep a story going. And dead men tell no tales. So what always bothers me is that oftentimes, like in the case of Mark McCandlish, I don't think that he had many friends in conspiracy land to stand up for him and say, don't go lying on him. He just died by suicide tragically. Leave him, rest in peace, leave him alone. So I stood up and did it. And boy, the nutters came out of the woodwork telling me how wrong I was, and the men in black killed him. And, you know, just come on. You know, especially when somebody dies tragically, like Max or this Mark McCandlish, like it's one of my pet peeves. Like, leave them alone. They have family. Sometimes they have children. They have sisters or brother, mother, father grieving their.
Hear that, David Schurter?
Loss, and you're on the internet telling fairy tales about what happened.
Hear that, David Schurter?
What really? Here's the truth about that guy's death. You know. And it seems to me, too, that Sarah R. Adams
One thing I do.
She rose to prominence just because she was that guy's girlfriend, right?
That's right, Sarah. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's what I think. And there are a couple things that are kind of odd about it. I want to get back to Sarah for a second. Well, one thing about Sarah is that Sarah was on the phone post his death doing a ritual with them. That is a fact. That has been confirmed by Vanessa.
Yeah, wasn't that something? So he would rise from the dead. He was going to rise from the dead or something based on some kind of magic ritual she was doing, or they were going to transfer his soul into another body or some nonsense.
But obviously they were trying to do something. Like, she talked about how you can get somebody's soul in a bottle of wine or milk or something like this. There was this. Like, that has been verified. Like, that's not really folklore, you know. Oh, Deborah Kale. Hi, Deborah. I saw that go up for a second. Yeah. So,
they're now, in terms of like James Casbolt and Max Spiers, they were talking about something back in 2014 that a lot of people who follow BooAnon now talk about. They were the first people to talk about vampirism on children and things like this, and the elite and those kind of, I don't want to get your channel in trouble. So
okay, so you know what I'm talking about, and this is true. They were OG on this topic until there was an Isaac Cappy. All right.
Yes, we say 17th letter of the alphabet.
Okay, it became 17th letter of the alphabet, but they were saying it beforehand. And so that therein lies the, I don't know, now they're not on the internet anymore. Like is that really what might be a part of it? And I, you know, again, I've got feelings about the 17th letter of the alphabet, that it's, you know, but it doesn't mean that some of that might not be real, or is it real? Like the definitive of that particular kind of activity that we're talking about before everything else exploded. This media has included that as part of like what these programs are, or what the elite do, or what the Illuminati is, or whatever. Now, maybe that started with David Icke. Maybe that started with, you know, in this area, but they did talk about those things. And that is kind of like the theory of like, well, what was on Max's computer? Like, what part of, like, why would everything that he had been working on or talking about be wiped off of everything? I don't know.
Yeah, so
like I have a question mark in that, and the main thing that bothers me the most is how the people, this media has covered it, and how they have used it. Like, I think that Miles is publishing that on Brighton because he's still trying to get some sort of juice out of views of Max, even though he's dead, and he doesn't care about how he's being.
I mean, how many people are buying into David Schroeder's stuff? Okay, how many people are buying into it? I'm just curious in terms of Max Spiers, to where, you know, he's wearing the, you know, I mean, recently in the stream where he was going off about me, which I'm going to show some more here. He's wearing the Stranger Things t-shirt. Seriously. You know, like he's prepping, like that's part of his framing, claiming that he has these special powers. David Schroeder is spinning the same damn stories. There's nothing different. There's nothing new here under the sun.
Depicted.
Max Spiers, others have said it was sort of a cash cow for Miles Johnson, and he was the most popular of the people that he,
and I'm sure he's a bit of a cash cow for David Schroeder.
Interviewed, so he kept bringing him back and bringing him back and bringing him back, and others that didn't get as many views as Max, he wouldn't keep bringing back and bringing back and bringing back. So yeah, like, what a vampire. The guy's dead and you're still trying to make a couple bucks off of him, telling fairy tales.
Isn't that what you're doing, David Schroeder, making a couple of bucks off of Max, right?
About his death. But you mentioned that everything that he was working on has been wiped, right? Like his laptops, his computers, his phone, his mother. You have spoken to his mother. Has she verified to you that everything was wiped?
Yes.
His computers, his laptops?
Yes. Yes, she has.
Very strange.
Yes.
Well, there could be a lot of reasons for that. Some people have said that there was, you know, people near him or around him were getting him drugs and things, and that there might have been some information related to drugs or messages about picking up and dropping off drugs. So somebody may have gotten to his devices to erase all that, to escape any responsibility for what may have been a drug-induced death, right?
May have been a drug-induced death. I mean, when you, first of all, why? Oh, here's one thing that I do want to bring up in terms of the drugs and everything. Max had, obviously it was known that he had a drug problem, and he had been to rehab for it. And also he was working on creating content for people who had been in programs or who had been sexually abused, that might have been, have that kind of issues, and to help them, because those kind of people sometimes have drug addictions. So he wanted to help do something that would help other people like that. That was a goal of his. But in terms of like being given drugs, like, obviously he was staying with people that if it was known that he had a drug problem, they were just willing
I want
to.
You to notice, did you notice that 6 Cents pops up in this? 6 Cents is a big Thomas person now. And broke away from Steven. Okay. Steven said something like he kind of went wacko on him. And now he's a big Denise person. But you can see that at that time he was one of Steven's moderators. Like, offer that interesting
to him anyways without caring. And
by the way, the 6 Cents is now uploading Vegan Mikey stuff and all the Isaac Cappy stuff and everything is all going up on his Rumble channel. Just, I find that interesting too.
Like, the person who bought it, Monica Duval, actually paid for those Turkish Xanax. It was purchased by her. The drug purchase came from her. Like, giving access to him having it. And I want to bring up
there he is again, the 6 Cents. See, there he is right there. And way back during that time, guess who's there? Oh, he's all up Schoenberger's butt now.
The discussion of targeted, like, gang stalking, or when you, and I know a lot of people like, oh, I don't believe this is true. Well, you might believe it if it's something like that might be happening to you in some way. And I think, and I had a similar experience where I was invited to go on a project, and I'm lucky I got home, and they were right away and like wanting to give me drugs. The first day I was there, giving me a bong to smoke in a scene when the scene didn't call for it, and I did do it, and things that are like actually illegal to have on a set. I think that when you're being targeted and they want you to be taken out in some ways, they do not want the karmic responsibility for it. So what happens is that you get tempted. They want to know if you are an addict, then you want to get you started again. And then, it's real easy to, like, if you're living at somebody's house and you're in a foreign country and you don't have much money, because I'm pretty sure he wasn't making the big bucks by speaking on all these conferences. That's not normally how it works. So when you are in the care of somebody else and at their whim, and they're giving you the food, let's say you do a drug and then they put like a little bit of something here and there in your drink and your food or whatever, so that when you do die and your toxology report does come out, then they can go, oh, well, they had this, this, and this, and this. Well, were they actually aware that was in there, that they took that in or not? Karmically, on a spiritual level, if you're the person who does it, then you gave consent for it. You were the one who did the first drug. So everything else that might be put in that sends you over the thing, oh, you're OD, will not fall on the people that are doing the harassment.
Yeah.
I know that sounds really way out there, but I think that they're like, when you see celebrities dying or you see somebody getting a hit, I think it's, and I've talked to other people on this topic too as well, and it's really about you doing you in. It's about, belittling you or harassing you or doing whatever you can, organized whatever happening around your house, or bugging or whatever it is. That is all meant for you to either lose your mind over it and be incarcerated, or they want you to like actually kill your own self. And then they're all happy.
Sound familiar, guys?
And somebody gets a nice little paycheck probably after all that.
Oh, yeah. It wasn't All Seeing You talking about something similar to this about like what like the Schoenberger people are doing. Yeah.
Well, and I thought we could talk for
Frank Bacon, Tyrone Simpson, right? Okay, where they surround you all over the internet, say awful things and how awful you are at doing this and that, and what a failure you are, and blah 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 blah, and all this stalking, and I'm going to ruin you, and I'm going to call your job, and blank blank blank, and you're a freaking whore, and you're a hag, and you're a porn star, and your hair isn't, you're wearing a wig, right?
a little while about.
You're a pedo protector. I mean, I've heard it all this year. Dwarf porn, all of it. You know?
What is, yeah. I think it's very we got a connection.
And guess who's done that? The guys that call them ghost pirates. Yeah, they've been involved. Yeah, who are the ghost pirates that we see? Oh, Chris McGinty Jones and Dean Fogueri, Titus. We run the internet. You know what? Why don't you go back and go play with your Legos? All right.
Dots there, but yeah, and I thought we could talk for a little while about what actually, because people are arguing about this in the live chat. Some are saying, no, he wasn't a super soldier. He got pushed into that. Like, what was he talking about in his lectures? What was he purporting himself to be, an experiencer? He was talking about aliens sometimes, AI, black goo, super soldier stuff, Mars jump rooms. What was his sort of shtick in conspiracy land? And what got him so popular?
That's hard to define. That's why I think that people, saw him as being a UFO researcher, as opposed to calling him, a super soldier. He was talking about Hollywood sometimes, which is an interest of people. That's why I wanted to interview him, because his grandfather was an actor, and I had become interested in the Dave McGowan book, Inside the Canyon, which is about the Laurel Canyon scene and how
weird scenes inside the canyon.
How the military-industrial complex has pretty much, created like the hippie movement, or how the Mamas and the Papas and Frank Zappa, they were all in that area, and the Air Force Base that's up on the top of Laurel Canyon that Jared Leto lives in now, and everything like that. That whole scenario was of interest to me at the time that I interviewed him, and that's what I really, when we had a topic, he had a lot of knowledge about that. And if somebody comes from a family that is in film and television, I was interested in having him on as a guest. So he did that. He talked a lot about that topic I'm talking to you about the Illuminati, about the elite, about the MK Ultra mind control, the victimization of having MK Ultra mind control. And one thing that Max did say, and I think this affected a lot of people, and it really affected me because I'm a big softie. And he said this on my show. We talked about Robin Williams and whether or not we thought Robin Williams was a hit or not. Like if he was not, because like a lot of times you just see celebrities dying for whatever reason. There's a lot of times there's a conspiracy after that when they do die. Right now, everybody's talking about Bob Saget. But, there are some strange things going on about Bob Saget in his death, right? So,
yeah, I didn't know about that, and I ran into it and I was shocked. I was like, wow, they're just going to call this a suicide, a closed case? Ooh, there is some weird stuff going on with him. So, yeah.
Yeah, and then there's the whole thing, not to go off on Bob Saget, but this whole Full House thing, and the some of the things that he said that were really inappropriate. That whole, it's weird too about Full House, because I'm kind of connected to it in a weird way, because I did. There was one time where I was dating John Stamos's, one of his best friends, before Full House happened, and I was at John Stamos's house. And I answered the phone.
Did he try to gang bang you?
His mom. No. But
he didn't try to gangbang you like Carrot Top?
Yeah, you know, if it was John Stamos, I might have done it, but you know, I'm kidding. Maybe not. Who knows? But
boy,
you know, I
women
talked to
love
his
that
mom
guy
before the
too,
show actually
right?
really spent. Oh, he's gorgeous. I mean,
Well,
come on. Come on.
Not
He's
my
gorgeous.
cup of tea. So
he's not your cup of tea. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
He was beautiful back then, and he still is a good-looking man, I think. But out of all of them, and then Dave Coulier, I've done a scene with before in a production thing, so kind of bumped into that. You seem very well. Things are. You want to know? Okay, that's what makes me think of, because like even when I was doing that scene with Dave Coulier, I kept thinking. You want to know? Okay, anyway, that world a little bit, but you know the rumor is that it was Alanis Morissette was singing about Dave Coulier, right, in the song "You Want to Know," and when I found that out, I go, "You got to be kidding me! You mean Dave Coulier, like Uncle Joey on Full House, is who she's pissed at?" Oh man,
Hollywood world, yeah.
Now I kind of see it. Yeah, that yeah. So like she's screaming about a comedian. Okay, anyway, yeah. Back in the '80s, I was dating his friend. When I was like 24, and then like 24 back then. Yeah,
you're dating yourself. Yeah.
When I was 24, working at a 50s diner, because he worked there. It was called Larry Parker's, not the you know, the accident attorney guy, but there was a Larry Parker's diner in Beverly Hills, and I was a waitress there. And before well, you know, it's probably, I think it was like 1980. I doing stand-up yet? I think it might have, I was doing stand-up, so I'm trying to find the time frame. Probably like in 1986, 1987, something, right? I think whenever that show came out, it was like they were in production of it. So I was like actually really hearing about it. But back to Max. You know, I mean, I just think that there's a lot of suspicion still shrouding around his death, and I do think that Sarah has lied about certain things concerning him, and then that she profited off of it. And I think that she's still trying to be in control of that footage that Miles has, which is what a lot of people have been doing in this. Like David Schroeder's still profiting off of it. You know, they're all it's like it's all the lies and everything, and just keep spinning and spinning and spinning until, you know, we're having the political paradigm that we are right now, because it does connect to it. It does connect to it. So, you know, I think it's going to be better than according to Sarah.
She threatened. I know that she threatened Miles Johnson with a lawsuit if he didn't take down her original "I'm a Super Soldier" video, because now she doesn't want people to see that she used to be a super soldier. Now she's a super power.
So now you see why Sarah might be in David Schroeder's sock puppet account spinning stories about how I'm associated to Carissa Renteria and she was a criminal and an escort, and how Stephen Cambion and I are both grifters, you know, blah, 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 and blah. In David's chat that David Schroeder went off on. You see why she would be motivated to pull some shit like that, guys?
Howard psychic healer, you know, so I know for a fact that she tried to threaten him to take those videos down because it conflicted with her latest superhero origin story, you know. It's interesting.
Right, but that's too bad because
Go ahead.
How do you have a lawsuit with something like that? Because if you did, like right now, if I'm doing the show with you, right? But let's say like 10 years, like 5 years later, I don't want people to see me talking about this. I can't sue you to take it down. I consented to be here. You know, so that's just that's ridiculous.
Well, just so everybody's aware, though, anybody that's ever been a guest here if they asked me, look, I really don't want you to leave that up, I would probably, just out of respect for the guest, take it down. But sometimes no, you know, like I'm sure there's a few guests like that. Angelique came on here and stormed off after 10 minutes, would prefer I take it down. That I won't take down because I just won't, you know, and it is what it is, you know? Yeah. So
it's your content.
Yeah. So we talked about some of the things. I suppose one of the reasons that a lot of I'm super into conspiracies, but I remember when he was getting so popular, I just listened to him a little bit and I went, okay, he's talking about stuff that I've heard about, and it appeared to me, at least, that he was gluing together or connecting a lot of dots, kind of like Alex Jones does, into some more grander conspiracy. You know, he talked about the Illuminati, bloodlines. He talked about, you know, secret government stuff and underground bases, and you know, it just didn't seem anything new to me. It seemed like he had pulled together a bunch of stuff from conspiracy land. So I didn't have very much interest in him, but I realized that he got super popular super quickly, and was making the rounds at all these conferences and things like that.
Yeah, he did. Again, like as you're talking, I realized I trailed off into Bob Saget and stuff. And, you know, I think that the one thing that he did say on my interview that I had was he talked about the human heart. Like the reason why, you know, we lost Robin Williams is because, you know, people loved him. And so, you know, the elite like to, like, you know, harm people on this, you know, heart level. And he talked about how Earth in the solar system was the heart of the solar system, and that is why it was wanting to be imprisoned it, because it still had heart and compassion compared to other planets. Maybe that was it. I mean, maybe that, you know, opened up people and made them want to wow, you know, froze up there for a minute. Maybe that made them want to like, you know, follow him. But I think he was just one of those people that was charismatic. He was a good speaker. You know, it's like he was an actor. It's like a good actor.
Yeah,
you know, it's like
if you look at him, he was handsome, he was charismatic, and he was a good storyteller. I didn't like, you know, I just never. I listened to it a few times and then I lost interest. But I will give him that. Good looking guy, very charismatic. The women loved him, and he was good at putting these stories together and explaining these things and connecting all these dots that, to me, you know, I don't know. But yeah, it's interesting. And I did get that actor vibe from him. I thought,
John, I want to address, like, everybody was giving him, you know, there were clearly he had a drug problem. There were times where he was, you know, in rehab and sober again. And like my point is that you know, when he went to Poland, apparently he was in a sober time, and he was wanting to, you know, do stuff about people with addiction, because he felt that people who were victims like he was in this, like SRA or what, he wasn't really technically SRA, but, you know, he felt that if you were sexually abused or you had MK Ultra, like there were reasons why a person like that would be vulnerable to doing drugs. So he wanted to have a support group for people. But, you know, yes, what I'm saying is that when people want you to go down, they will tempt you with what your weakness is. My theory is that Monica Duvall bought him the Xanax. She took him to Cyprus. She got a doctor's note to give him exactly what he shouldn't have had. So they were knowing that he had a history of drugs. You know, I think that it was like a temptation. That's why I say when you do it to yourself, then they don't have any karmic responsibility. But she did give him that drug. And another thing too is, like, if you really listen to his last interview where he's struggling to breathe and having really some serious issues, they should have taken him to the people that did that show should have taken him to a doctor or to an emergency room. Like, they allowed him, he complained about not feeling well for quite a few days publicly, and yet he never really got any medical attention. So those are my arguments. And people want to go, oh, well, he was just a drug addict. Well, yeah, he was, but he also, there was a period of time where he could have had some medical attention, and obviously he didn't.
Is because he was, you know, chiseled face, and he was handsome and very charismatic, and that may have been the
he was an
some of his
actor.
Success. Oh, okay.
And yeah, he
wanted to be one.
Something about bile and the autopsy report. You know, I've seen a few reports, but I didn't see any mention of, like, you know, about what he threw up, and it was never labeled as bile. I certainly don't think it's black goo, but there hasn't ever been any official report on what he vomited, as to my knowledge. And I don't know, you're saying something like that here in the chat. I'm just wondering where you got that information.
He was in that, he was trying to be an actor. You know, and you know, yeah.
Well, I mean, I think you should take research. But I heard that
Miles pressured him. I need new material.
I don't know. I mean, you know, maybe I didn't get the official one, but I have looked at certain things, and I've never seen anybody mention what he actually vomited. I mean, I think that, I mean, they'd have to probably take a specimen of that, because that happened outside of his body before he died. So I don't know. How do they determine what he vomited?
You.
I'm just curious.
I need new material from you. So it like, he talked about his background. He talked about how, you know, he had MK Ultra mind control and these different things. Like, he said his own stories just like everybody else did, but he also spoke about a bunch of other topics that really had nothing to do with him per se. And, you know, because, you know, he was a super soldier. He was like an expert on the information. And I think that's how he was invited to all these different conferences and things like that.
Yeah. So I think maybe we can switch gears, you know, unless you have more to share. I think we could switch gears. And
no, I'm good with.
Yeah, I think we were going to do a show before all about this Oki's Weird Stories, and how, for those unaware, there's a YouTube channel, right? It's called Oki's Weird Stories. Is that what it's called? And he basically, this guy,
I think so.
Yeah, this guy from Oki's Weird Story YouTube channel, he decided that what he was going to do is he was going to study all this super soldier stuff, and then he was going to invent a whole story about him being a super soldier. And by the way, in his story, he was trained by a clone of Kevin Spacey, right? And, you know, he went to Mars and fought aliens. And then he goes on the Super Soldier Channel's YouTube show and tells his whole story. And they bought it hook, line, and sinker. People were in the comments talking about how accurate his information was, and how, you know, his story resonated with them, and they're a super soldier too, and all this nonsense. Let's talk for a while about the fact that that whole community was so easy to fool.
John, I did a show about that, you know, when it first came out. So I have a live stream saved here on my channel where I talk about that documentary. Yeah, that's why Steven's bringing it up.
By somebody completely faking it, right?
Yeah, they were, and the documentary is called "How I Infiltrated a Bizarre Conspiracy Cult," is the name of it, and it's uploaded on his channel on YouTube, and then I mirrored some of it and did commentary on my channel when I first watched it. And what he did, like, he was watching it like I got caught up in it. Like, but I got caught up in the super soldier stuff back, you know, like I got caught up in it in like 2011, 2010 was when I was first watching these guys.
Okay, and let me also specify, this also falls into Denise Matau drumming up bullshit about, Max and, how I'm obsessed with, military and all this kind of shit. I'm explaining how I found the super soldiers back in like I'm saying, it's like 2013, 2000 and, where they, and I was like, I was fascinated by it. I mean, I was naive, hearing things for the first time, getting into this. So it was kind of like a hidden pleasure that I didn't want to tell anybody that I was looking at, kind of thing. And before I even joined this media, I was watching. It was kind of one of those things where I went, I didn't want to tell people I was watching it, but I was fascinated by it. These guys are just saying these outlandish stuff.
Maybe you were looking for, you were looking for your own Captain America. That's what I think.
Yeah,
you wanted to find your own Captain America, right?
This is trippy, and so, but he was watching it, and then, of course, he didn't totally believe it, and then, and in the documentary, you see Captain Randy Kramer and all Benjamin Fulford and
I interviewed Captain Randy Kramer too back when I was on Revolution Radio. Yeah.
Like Corey Good, a lot of the people that are involved in the Super Soldier program, they watch Corey Good, they watch all these different, he's in the mix as well, and they have their he drew.
I don't remember meeting you back then, John. You've been around that long. I mean, like, did you go by another name? Because I really haven't been full on into it for years. So you're going back to like 2000 and like, 16, 17, 15. I mean, I interviewed Max in 2000 at the end of 2015. So I was on Revolution Radio and American Freedom Radio that at that time. I didn't live stream here on YouTube. But I don't recall you back then at all.
Different stories, because there's a certain narrative that matches down. Yeah. And I find it really interesting that Kevin, right?
I mean, this interview is it? I mean, I'm in my old apartment, so it's at least like almost a year and a half, 2 years ago that I did this interview with Stephen.
Like, it's got its own anthology happening, and when they came out and said that Kevin Spacey, like, you're like, well, where does Kevin Spacey?
Stephen who? Are you talking about Stephen Cambion? Were you hanging around Stephen Cambion? Or are you talking about Stephen D. Kelly? Because like when I was, hanging out with Stephen Cambion, I wasn't really all up into it at that point. And when I was doing stuff with Stephen Cambion, I was pretty much coming out of drinking the Kool-Aid. Like I was getting skeptical. That's why, that's kind of like how we have a connection, really, in a sense. What? No, Cambion. Yeah, no, I wasn't, John. I wasn't all into it like that at that time. I wasn't. You've got that wrong. And I don't remember you from Stephen Cambion. I don't remember. Were you going underneath that another name? Where I mean, like, I wasn't all up in it at that time. I was like busting the 17th letter of the alphabet and stuff. What you're saying? What are you saying? Oh, okay. So you're saying I wasn't into it then? Okay. All right. But I don't remember you back then. Matter of fact, you never came onto my radar. I'll tell you when I recall ever having any interaction with you, John, is when you came to my defense when the Pervana 666 account on X was accusing me of dwarf porn and going off on me, the fact that Jeff Reed's daughters clicked onto my link and came onto my show, and they were trying to like accuse me of trafficking them with Angel Power Disney. That's when you first came into my recollection of knowing anything about you, because you came into my defense at that time. I don't recall knowing you back when I was like hanging out and consistently in Stephen Cambion's chats. Yeah. So, yeah, it was bad. Yeah, it was bad. And, you know, that bad is still continuing right now. Oh, okay. Well, maybe so. But were you always John? Were you always Aussie John? Were you always John again? Were you using these accounts when you were like, you know, in Stephen Cambion's chats or something? I'm going to continue.
Come from? Well, Kevin Spacey was in a movie called The Men Who Stare at Goats, which is the closest thing to anything like a super soldier, something that it would have involved MK Ultra mind control or psychic abilities, because it was a sect of the military that really did exist. And there was a documentary done where a man was able to stop a goat's heart with their mind. So there has been work done in that way where they wanted to use these things in the military, because when you talk about super soldiers, you get into remote controlling and, you know, energetic work and warfare that doesn't have to do with guns. But it's, you know, the whole thing has been really stretched out of proportion with this, you know, whole anthology. So Oki actually took that, one of those stories, made up his own narrative about what was going on. And then finally, like, okay, now James Rink is another person that's kind of like an offshoot of all of this. I say offshoot, but he has like the Super Soldier Talk Forum Live, or and so, you know.
Okay, yeah, I did do that show with Simon Parks and everybody, and there was C.W. Chanter, because Simon Parks was being a predator on women through his scam. Yeah. Okay, I get it now. Yeah, I was on that panel. I was going to be on, but never happened. I can't remember why. Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. Yes, Simon Parks, also a big 17th letter of the alphabet LARPer.
Continuously. And he actually, I think, accepts, like in the documentary, I think it was like $200 to have a session with James Rink. And then he says, well, I'm booked up. I can't take you till later. So it's like a month later, finally does it. And the guy Oki just spills out his story that he practiced so well. And James is just sitting there going, yeah, oh, okay. You know, like it's,
no, he ate it up. He ate it.
Says, "Hey, I'm."
James Rink is one of the biggest phonies out there. I come on, yeah.
He ate it up, and the entire audience loved it. The audience loved it. The little details he added, like being trained by a Kevin Spacey clone and all this other nonsense, and he was talking about the weapons that he.
John, have you? I just want to throw this out there. Have you seen? James Rink has all these dancing Instagram videos. Have you seen him break dancing and stuff? I don't know, those. I might. Those need to be pulled out. They're hilarious.
And I always think that, honestly, I'm so into conspiracy land stuff, but as soon as I hear super soldier talk, I check out, because I go, this is ridiculous. This is Captain America. I read that comic as a child, you know, and they all have their. You know, and then we have like James Caswald, who literally says that he has lasers that can.
It's pretty funny. Maybe I'll have to show that sometime. It's pretty funny.
Pop up out of his arms and stuff, and all these other. These guys always have superpowers, but they won't show us the superpowers. And one of the things that I always find funny too about these super soldiers is that they're always in terrible shape. You never see like a big buff guy come out and say he was in a super soldier program. It's always some fat, balding, overweight guy that looks like a slob, you know. And famously, I don't know if you know this, Terry Joyce, but Randy Kramer, I did a show on him, and he kind of through a mutual friend like threatened me, you know, like he was going to beat me up or something. And I said, here's what I'll do. I will rent a boxing ring anywhere you want, Randy Kramer. And you're a super soldier. I'm just some normal human slob. So you should be able to beat the living shit out of me, right? In a box. You're a super soldier. I offered him $10,000 to get in a boxing ring with me for however many rounds he wanted, 3 rounds, 12 rounds, whatever he wanted. And if he beat me up and beat me in a boxing match, I would give him the 10 grand. Crickets. crickets, because I just wanted to get in a boxing ring with him and prove he doesn't have superpowers. You know, and it's funny when you like confront some of these people with how much what they're talking about is a delusion, they lose their minds, because it's like something breaks in their head. Like, oh my God, this guy is saying that my stories are fake and I'm fake and this isn't real. They lose it a little bit, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, especially if they're, you know, they're not real. I mean, if you are real, then why? I mean, obviously, why would you care, really?
Yeah, prove it.
If right, you know, you'd go, okay, sure, but Randy Kramer's an interesting one, actually. I think I interviewed him one time too, and it was on my other channel. I don't know. I think I have the footage on something, a thumbnail or something like that. But I did, back when I was on Revolution Radio. I did interview him.
Oh God!
And he smoked a vape pen the whole time. He like he was vaping cannabis while I did the interview. Believe it or not.
Well, I can't blame him for that. But, you know, one of the things that's interesting about him is that he literally describes weapons from the video game Halo. Like, somebody asked him, like, what kind of weapons did you use on Mars when you were fighting those aliens? And he described weapons that were exact to the Halo game weapons, which is just hysterical to me. You know, like, he's using video game, you know, laser guns and disruptor weapons, and it's just so ridiculous, you know. And that guy, of course, claims to, you know, be a Marine and a Navy SEAL at the same time, which is impossible. Ask any Navy SEAL. You can't be in the Marines and the Navy at the same time. It's absolutely ridiculous. But it is what it is. That guy's still very popular. He sells, what does he sell? A course on how to become psychic and move things with your mind for thousands of dollars. Crazy. But I'm sorry, back to Oki's strange stories. What?
Okay,
so
back to Oki.
Casbah took it down after he realized he got punked, right? He took the video down, the full video of the interview.
You mean James Rink?
James
Yeah.
Rink,
After he got punked. Because like first he had the session for the $200, right? And then he verified, yeah, you've definitely been in the program. And do you want to speak in Vegas? And then so the documentary filmmaker went out to Vegas to a David Farman UFO event. And I don't know if you guys have ever been to one of his events, but I have, actually. And so, you know, but it's like crickets there. There's not crickets, but there's hardly any. I mean, it seems like those events are getting worse and worse. And maybe in terms of people really showing up at it. Now, maybe he's making money off of the live streams that people are buying, you know, of the different speakers. So they go to these different things, and then the next day he does an interview with James Rink while he is in Vegas telling a story. And, you know, and then afterwards he just basically walks out, and it's like him getting on the plane and talking about his experience. And Oki says, like, as I had practiced my story over and over again, and I said it was almost like I believed it myself. Like I could almost see myself like writing books.
He did a great job.
Stuff like that. But, you know, that's not, yeah, he did. And now the aftermath of that is that, and I mirrored it on my channel a little bit. There's another channel on YouTube that interviewed James Rink, and they kept saying that he had a gargoyle. Like the filmmaker, you know, had all these, they could remote viewing him and what his purpose was, and that he's very low vibration, basically going to hell
Luciferian
or whatever that is.
Satanist.
You know,
yeah, he's a Satanist.
Gargoyle attached. Right, yeah. And he has a gargoyle attached to his throat chakra, which that's like, lately, like there's some people that, you know, I know, like Charles from Project Camelot,
I'm gonna
we
pop
keep
off
like
of
joking
this
about the gargoyle, like how there's a gargoyle attachment.
I mean, this is like turning into a 3-hour stream, and normally I like to go this long, and there are a couple more things that I want to share with you, but I think you get the point of that particular live stream, and I'm gonna place the